us.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Did you have a little trouble logging on? We saw you come in and out and in and out.
Yep. Well, yeah, I blame it on Brian. Anytime
It's his computer. I had nothing to do with it. But you know what? Convincing him of that is harder than anything you could try and accomplish. So.
Well, we are so excited to have you here. Thank you so much. We've got, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 of us. We've got a mix of some staff members and a group of 6 or 7 teenagers, and we're very happy.
I'm not a teenager.
Some adults and some younger ones. We've got a nice mix for you today. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We're thrilled to have you here.
No, we really appreciate it. You know, we got a chance to talk to, Holly the other week, and just love everything you guys are doing. Feel bad you can't have your big, summer camp this summer, but we're happy to jump in and be able to share some time with you guys. And it's a good break for Brian and I too, because now it actually feels like we're hanging out with a group of people, even though we are in the same house stuck like everybody else.
I am getting pretty tired of Brad, and it's nice to see all of your shining faces.
Can you guys see us and hear us okay?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Definitely. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Great. So we thought we could structure, we thought what we would do is we would tell you a little bit about ourselves. We'd have a couple laughs. Brad and I would make fun of each other profusely. And then we really want, more than anything, to have you guys ask questions, answer questions, and really about any topic from visually impaired, growing up, working, school, all the way to our favorite flavors of ice cream. Mine's cookie dough. That one's great. And really just have a great time with you guys, and have it be just honestly us being a resource for you more than anything. And we hope by the end of this, you feel a little inspired, a little happy, and you guys have a awesome little while with us. How's that all sound?
That sounds great. We're super excited.
Yeah, so if it's helpful, we can kind of give a couple minutes, on ourselves, if anybody isn't kind of familiar with our story. So I guess we'll sort of just start there. Brian and I, if you can't tell already, we're brothers. I'm definitely a little bit better looking, so sometimes people think we're not related. I'm 5 years older. And Brian and I both have an eye condition called Stargardt's disease, which, if you don't know what it is, it's sort of a juvenile form of macular degeneration. Typically, it's where you lose center vision over time. And so, when I was in kindergarten, 5 years old, I failed the kindergarten eye chart, which started this sort of 1.5 year long hunt to figure out what had actually happened, because these are rare conditions. And through some trials and tribulations, we were able to get to the right doctor, figure it out. It was a tough moment for my parents, but they gave us sort of the best advice ever, which was to not let this particular challenge, or really any challenge, be something that would hold you back from living a very happy and successful life, because we all have challenges, and then we all have incredible strengths. And it's just a matter of finding out what those are and confronting them and moving forward. And so basically, with that knowledge, we were kind of doing our best. I remember the day that I got diagnosed. My mom was kind of pissed off, so she took me to the doctor said, you've got Stargardt's disease. There's no hope for a cure. Go home, get a magnifier, and best of luck. And when we got back in that car, my mom looked at me and she said, F this. and then she said, let's go to Friendly's and get some ice cream. And for a long time, that's actually what I thought F this meant. And so we went to Friendly's. I got this giant sundae. We went to this old, it used to be, it's like kind of like a Netflix. It's called Blockbuster. That it doesn't exist anymore. And we rented Air Bud. And I remember eating ice cream, watching Air Bud, this golden retriever that can shoot 3-pointers in a basketball game, thinking like this was like the best day of like my entire life.
And basically the same thing happened to me at the same doctor, the same effing Friendly's experience. But the only difference was I got Airbud 2 golden receiver 5 years older. So, you know, the dog had evolved into playing football, which I was pretty proud of. I mean, he's really an amazing creature. You know, and then this kind of went on for a while, right? We had, you know, elementary school and middle school, you're really trying to figure out who you are, how to deal with your visual impairment, and you take a lot of cues from your parents, but there, you know, as anybody knows, there's a lot of bullying, there's a lot of challenging moments, a lot of tough moments, but like the worst one for me was when I was in high school. I had my freshman year, I was going to a brand new school. No one knew I wasn't visually impaired. I was psyched. I was like, for one day, I'm not gonna be the blind kid. This is gonna be awesome. And so I sat at the back of the class thinking that would solve the problem somehow. And my teacher calls on me. His name was Dr. Folo. And he says, Brian, it's a math class. He goes, Brian, can you do the problem on the board? And probably like most people on this call, you develop ways to get the teacher to read the board for you. So, you know, a little ambiguity. Dr. Folo, what problem are you talking about? Hoping he'll say it aloud. And he looks at me and goes, oh, this one. I was like, all right, you're gonna play hardball, I see. And I went, you know, I doubled down a little. I said, Dr. Folo, a lot going on up there. What exactly on the board are you talking about? And he turns and he looks and he just points at the board and he says, right here. And I said, oh, you mean the addition, the multiplication, what part of the problem? He goes, Brian, stop goofing around and do the problem. And I, at that time, was going to play dumb because to me, being dumb was frankly better than being blind. So I go to Dr. Full, I'm sorry, I don't know how to do it. It's on me. Maybe we can talk after class. He looks at me, he looks at the problem. He goes, it's simple division. This is not complicated. Please do the problem and stop goofing off. And it just shattered me because I had to admit to Dr. Folo and to my class and to myself that, you know, I just couldn't do the problem because I couldn't see it. It was the worst possible way for that to come out. It devastated me. But it was also kind of an amazing moment. And as many of you have probably found, the biggest disability I was giving myself actually had nothing to do with my visual impairment. It had everything to do with hiding it, and the shame and the heartbreak and the negative energy I put towards it. So when I got through that moment, I had that realization that I just needed to be authentic to myself and let everything else fall as it will. It was like a giant weight off my shoulders. It was this huge enlightening moment that blindness wasn't a disability. It was something that I lived with and that I could get through life with it. And I didn't need to hide it or be shameful of it. And if I did that, everything else would fall into place.
And, you know, we were really lucky to, you know, learn some of these lessons about being authentic and genuine and the power of being vulnerable and actually the very, very, very rare thing in life is not to have a vision impairment. You know, it's to have actually good self-esteem and good self-confidence. Mm-hmm. And so with those lessons, you know, we both went to college at the University of Virginia. You know, I'm older than Brian. I graduated first. I went to New York City, found a decent job. Brian followed me soon afterwards. And
I didn't follow you. I 14 million. All right. It wasn't like I stalked up there afterwards.
So after Brian was done following me to New York, one day we were sort of walking around New York, and we were shopping. And Brian and I have always been very close to an organization called the Foundation Fighting Blindness. They fund a lot of early stage researchers that are looking for kind of new cures and therapies for different forms of blindness, inherited retinal eye disease. And they had a major success with a very rare eye condition, LCA, Leber's congenital amaurosis, in a particular gene called the RPE65 gene. And they was going into clinical trials, and they had treated a kid named Yannick Douay. And this particular kid went from reading Braille before the treatment, and then afterwards he could read print. And we were so excited by that. We thought that was so cool. We loved the research. We thought we were living through this medical revolution. And then on the same day, Brian and I, we walk into a Bloomingdale's store to go buy a shirt. And, Brian and I, we lose each other everywhere we go. And I don't know if it's the same for anyone watching, but shopping can kind of be a pain in the butt sometimes. Sometimes it's hard to see the labels, the sizes, the colors of the shirt. So we often will just grab a shirt in the men's section, hopefully, feel it and decide if we love it. Then we'll get the sales associate to help us, say, I'm trying to find this size, or, oh yeah, what's the price of that shirt? And on this day, we coincidentally walked out and we had bought the exact same shirt in a store with probably 1,000 shirts. And, at that time, I would never wear the same shirt as Brian. So we played rock, paper, scissors. I won. Brian had to go return the shirt. Little side note. But in that moment, we kind of had a little moment where we thought, well, what if there was something to this? We were talking all about this incredible advancement in the research and the Foundation Fighting Blindness, and how hard it is to make science and research feel tangible to the people that they're trying to raise funds for. And what if there was something to this consumer brand idea? What if there was something to this vigilance to touch, the idea that you buy a clothing item because it feels amazing? And that's when we came up with our clothing brand with two simple missions. One, help try to find the next cure by donating 100% of the profits from that project to researchers to cure blindness through the Foundation Fighting Blindness. And two, make the softest shirts in the entire world. And that's when we came up with our clothing brand, Two Blind Brothers.
I think we should pause and go for questions, or do we?
So we have a great, and then there's a second part of the story about some of the adventures that happen beyond that. But maybe we'll pause there, and see if see if anybody has any
questions, comments, concerns. And if not, we can keep running.
Can I ask what your educational background is? You said you both went to the University of Virginia. What were your degrees in?
Go ahead, Brad.
So the UVA has an undergrad kind of business school. So my degree was in finance with a minor in marketing.
And my degree was in statistics with a concentration in econometrics. It sounds way fancier than it is. And I got out of there by the skin of my teeth.
And almost none of it had anything to do with starting a clothing brand.
And how did you guys actually get that started? I mean, did you just go and buy some fabric and feel it? How did you find a manufacturer to get started?
I'll turn it over to Brian.
Great. So that's a great lead into the second half of our speech. I'm glad you got my questions ahead of time. So basically, Brad and I had some good friends who worked in the fashion industry, because living in New York, there are some of these people. And so we solicit fabrics from all over the world. And we get in touch with all of these fabric mills, and we ended up with a stack of books about 5 feet tall. And we meet at this coffee shop in the West Village once a week, because we both had full-time jobs and we could find a little time. We would sit there and we would sift through them one by one, just totally brute force. I like this. I don't like this. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And then we get rid of all the no's and we do it again and we did it again and we did it again until one day we're down to our last 3 fabrics and Brad picks one up and he goes, I gotta tell you, I think this is the one. And I look at him, I feel it, I go, yeah, I think it is. And with a twinkle in his eye, he's looking at it and smiling, so happy.
Well, okay. Everyone knows that that's BS because Brian's eyesight is not good enough to see if there's a twinkle in my eye.
The story. So he holds it up and he looks at me and I'll never forget this. He goes, Ryan, do you know how to sew? And I was like, yeah, Brad, I've been hiding my seamstress skills from you for 30 years. Let me just run back to my house and my sewing machine. Give me a week. But we end up finding this great little manufacturer in the garment districts on 36th Street in New York. And we buy, like 100 or 200 yards of fabric, which turns into about 150 shirts. And we're so excited. And then we make this, sorry, I said Brad made this website and it was awful. It was like the worst jankety, you're getting a virus type looking website. And it obviously no one's buying shirts. Even our friends and family won't buy shirts from us. But then we make this video with a buddy who is a Starbucks barista by day and had a passion for videography. So we meet at Brad's apartment on a Sunday. He sets up this kind of white background thing and we sit in front of a camera for like 4 or 5 hours and he's just asking us questions and we're talking about our relationship as brothers, being visually impaired, our mission to cure blindness, and making the softest shirt in the world. This video was a few minutes long. We made a Facebook page and we put it out and it was incredible. And to give everyone just a tiny bit of context, before Two Blind Brothers, if I put up a picture, it got 2-ish likes. One was from my grandmother, and one was from my grandmother's second account. She's working on getting better at school. However, this video goes out, and over the course of about a week, it goes absolutely viral. It gets millions of views and tens of thousands of comments and likes to wazoo. And Brad and I have no idea we're like, oh my God, what's happening? Well, what we had tapped into and what we're so grateful to be a part of and is this community, is this visually impaired community that is the single greatest, most amazing, most supportive, most loving, and most caring group of people you could possibly ever find. And we would hear tons and tons of stories, which we'll get to in a minute, but it was just unfathomable. And so we start getting a little bit of media, Fox 5 chasing news in New York. We do an interview with them and I'm like, and Brad and I are just giving each other a high five. We're like, it's champagne and sailboats here on out. We're about to be the fashion company in the world. Good job, us. And nothing happened. And then we do this video on the internet, now this. And we're like, oh my God, they have 7 million followers. We did it. We're going. Honestly, let's just quit our jobs and walk away. Kind of nothing happens. And then in November of 2016, we get a phone call. And the assistant at Brad's office answers and covering her mouth and kind of shaking. And Brad's like, oh my God, some customer is just laying into this poor girl. That is awful. Like, I better go over and help her. And she says, yeah. I'll put you on a call. No problem. Hangs up. And Brad goes, who was that? And he goes, what the hell were they saying to you? And she goes, no. That was a woman named Courtney. She's the producer for the Ellen DeGeneres show. And we lose our minds. And I'm going to do a slight aside because this is one of my favorite stories of all time. You can't tell I'm getting excited. So we get this. Brad and I are different people, right? We had this call on Tuesday. So we'd call in sick to work at all these interviews, all this. So we're constantly sick from work. I think they thought I was dying, but then no one was sick enough to ask. So I'm coming home, and this is how Brad and I are a little different. I come back, and Brad I don't know if you've ever seen the movie A Beautiful Mind, but it looked like a flow chart with every permutation of conversation you could ever have in your entire life. If Courtney said hi versus hello, formal conversation, right flow, go right. And I'm sitting there and I look and I go, all right, man, like you put a lot of work into this. You can take the first hello or hi of the call. And we're game planning and strategizing. So 2 p.m. rolls around. And we're all excited. Brad, I'll let you tell it actually.
Well, yeah. So it wasn't like some crazy beautiful mind flow chart. It was your standard flow chart. Okay.
And raise of hands, how many people have made a flow chart? Just period, ever.
It was a great flow chart, but Brian flies a little bit more by the seat of his pants. Okay. He flies a little bit more with instinct. Okay, he's more sizzle, less steak, if you know what I'm talking about. So Courtney, the producer, of course. I mean, this is a national media moment. I mean, this could make or break your entire project. At this point, we were quite small, shipping orders out of our apartment, and so we have her on speakerphone. She goes, hey, how's it going today, guys? Which wasn't in my flow chart because I only had hi and hello and hey. Brian at that time was doing sales for a company called SNL Financial. And so he was talking like sales pitching, like community banks, selling them software. And so I think he was like on a hot streak or something at work, or he felt like he had his golden mouth of nonsense ready to roll. He jumps over me into the phone and screams into the phone at the producer, Courtney, it's sweater weather in New York City. Those bad boys went away in April and now they're out and I'm in a fantastic mood. And all of a sudden it's like dead silence on the phone, and I literally, the blood drains from my head. I was about to faint. I couldn't believe what I was just hearing. I was like, dude, why swing for the fences on the first sentence, you know? Why swing for the fences? We have a good story. You sound like a psychopath. But then all of a sudden, I start hearing what sounds like choking on the other end of the phone, and it's actually Courtney trying to catch her breath because she's laughing so hard. So I toss the flow chart to the side and I go, Brian, just keep going. But anyway, so they ended up booking us on the show. It was incredible. It changed it really did help change the trajectory of the project. And then that's when kind of Two Blind Brothers really kind of got off to the races.
And another funny aside, just because we're all friends here, they asked us before we go on the show, they say, do you have enough inventory, enough shirts to sell for our
5 million person, nationwide audience?
Daily audience? Of course you do. You kidding? How irresponsible of a company would you be to not have enough product to cover, this audience? Meanwhile, we had like 205 shirts just sitting.
Oh, jeez.
Like, no, we got plenty, and it was kind of amazing because we oversold on everything by a lot, and we sent out this big email to all these people saying, "Hey, we're going to be really late," and to the goodness of humanity, out of the thousands of people that received this message saying, "Hey, we'll give you a full refund, or if you can wait 2 months, we'll get you your shirt." Only 4 people said, "I want my refund." Everybody else was said, "That's totally fine, no big deal. Really like your story, happy to support the mission."
Yeah, and it's interesting, and this gets into something that I think Brian and I reflect on a lot. Is when we were about to go on that show, we actually had people who were like a little bit nervous for us, saying like, "Oh, do you want to nationally broadcast this brand, Two Blind Brothers? Do you want to label yourself in that way on a national stage? It's great that you have this project that the Foundation Fighting Blindness knows about and your friends and family know about. But this is going to have career implications for you for a very long time, to the extent you can people don't need to know about your eyesight issue until you decide to kind of tell them about it, or, or an awkward moment pops up. But if it wasn't for all of those hard fought lessons in middle school, in high school, in college, where, where frankly, some people, when they're either first diagnosed or when they imagine, facing somebody and being called blind or having somebody tease you about your eyesight, they kind of cringe a little bit about that. But when you've walked through that 5 times, 10 times, 100 times, you master it. You really master it, and you overcome it, and you see it for what it is. And we felt kind of like we never even thought twice about it, because it's something that we had done privately throughout our whole lives. And so that was one kind of thing that sort of popped up, and it made us realize how important it is to kind of spread that message about being authentic. Back to Brian's point in high school about how, it's such a much bigger impairment or hindrance or handicap or disability, whatever, to not feel that authenticity, that genuine, that understanding that we all have challenges, but we also can overcome them, and we have the ability to embrace them. So that was sort of another big moment for us. But I guess we'll pause there and see if anybody has any questions on any of that.
Okay.
How's your business doing, like with Corona and everything?
How are we doing with Corona? It's a really good question. And Brad and I actually feel kind of fortunate because a lot of our business is e-commerce focused. We are all online. We don't have a brick and mortar. And I actually think when we first joined, I heard you guys talking that, some people are still doing online shopping. And I think that's where most people are getting their stuff now, instead of going to the store and buying that shirt they need or that whatever that they might have, they're going online and shopping. So Two Blind Brothers is actually, we've had some challenges with, making sure the warehouse is safe and making sure all the deliveries are safe and the production is safe. And, we're really trying to make sure we're as on top of that as humanly possible. But we're having a lot of good fortune in that people are shopping online and that they want to buy something that makes them feel good, that they know is going back into curing blindness. And it's been really, really heartwarming to see a lot of the messages.
So what made you move your manufacturing from New York to Texas?
Oh yeah, great question. We didn't touch on this. So after we got some of the media attention, an organization reached out to us, Dallas Lighthouse for the Blind. And, this guy, Greg, who was their CFO at the time, called us and said, hey, there's an organization here called, Dallas Lighthouse that is 70% a visually impaired blind workforce. And we do apparel manufacturing. And we're like, are you kidding? Like we actually had no idea that organizations like this even existed. And, frankly, and by the way, and they're not the only one. There's maybe 100 or at least 50 organizations like this that actually do commercial activities and have a mission, and they're 501c3s that have missions around employing folks with, different abilities and challenges. And so we started working with Dallas Lighthouse, and now they got acquired by an organization called Envision. We're now working with an organization called Industries for the Blind in North Carolina. They help us make our sunglasses product, and it's been an unbelievable part of our story, because when we first started this, we were committed to the research. We're excited about the research. We think that research has a particular challenge in raising money because it's a little less tangible. But equally, if not more important, is making sure that the community is served. And so the fact that we could actually economically bring these types of organizations into our supply chain was like a home run. It was a win-win, and it's added a whole nother dimension to the brand, which has been awesome.
So I wanted to ask, like, what assistive technology do you guys use the most?
Great question. So we use the Zoom function a lot on our Macs. Brad and I are both use Apple. So we use the Zoom function and the 3-finger tap on the iPhone. Speech to text and text to speech we use all the time. And it's so funny whenever I have my phone read something, because it's kicked up to 5 or 6 times normal speed. Everyone is like, what was that chipmunk noise that just I go, I just read that. I read that entire article you're working on right now.
Well, and to be fair, I think some of the reason they're confused is Brian has switched his Siri to an Australian accent. So it sounds like
somebody's going to be reading to me. I want it to be a pleasant voice, okay? And those are the two big ones. And as Brad said earlier, Stargarts, you keep a lot of your peripheral vision. So detail work is very challenging, but mobility is not as big of a struggle for folks with our disease. However, the number one tool that is used and it's not technology, it's as basic as possible. It's asking for help. Asking the waiter for a recommendation, or asking my wife for to help me get through something if we're in a dark room, or her to read the menu, or any of that stuff. Being open and able and willing to ask for help is a huge skill for somebody with a visual impairment, but it's an even bigger skill for entrepreneurs and business owners and people in the workforce, because everyone is afraid to ask for help. But instead of doing that, because once you can ask somebody for help, you can learn, you can create, and you can perform just so much better.
Thank you.
No problem.
Do you use a cane to get around the day to day?
Yeah, so Brian and I, we don't use a cane or a guide dog. We have, so as Brian was sort of mentioning, and you never know with some of these degenerative diseases where your eyesight's going to end up. But as Brian was sort of mentioning with Stargardt's, we lose a lot of our center vision, but we actually keep a decent amount of peripheral vision, which means like to recognize somebody's face or to read the text on a screen is pretty tough. But to actually see objects in a room or to spot like an exit somewhere, it's usually not so tough. It's interesting. We were talking the other day with a guy, who has retinitis pigmentosa, and it's kind of like the opposite. He can actually read small print, but he loses his peripheral vision. So he actually has more trouble with mobility, less trouble with seeing, specific details. So that's the condition of our eyesight right now. And our vision acuity is around like 2400, if that means anything to anyone. Sure.
And do you guys have, because you guys are all, 15 to 20-ish, years old, and do you guys have an idea of what you want to do once you for a job or college or any of that stuff?
Okay, I guess I'm gonna start. I am 20. I did go to college for a bit, but my problem is I have more than one eye condition, so I have several like stacks on top of each other. So I can't read like small print. Mobility is tough. I don't have peripheral vision, but my professors weren't accommodating what I needed. So in turn, I failed. So I stopped going to college, and right now I'm trying to find a job because I'm moving into my own apartment on Sunday, actually. And I'll be going back to a technical school to study culinary arts. But
Great.
I love theater. I love Broadway. I actually have a job working for the Broadway shows that tour down here in Florida. And I also am a Twitch streamer, so I play video games, which everyone's like, that's so cool. You can play video games. They're like, how do you do it? I'm like, I don't have these headphones for no reason.
That's awesome. I love to cook as well. I sometimes play video games. Not very good at them anymore. I was a lot better when I was a little younger. But that's awesome.
I play video games too. You too.
I'm almost 11. I'm 10, but almost 11. And this has been amazing because I've done lots of fundraising and for like cancer research.
Oh, wow.
And my blindness is caused by a brain tumor. And I've been doing this. So I've gone to Washington for CureFest.
CureFest.
For I went with a group called Gold Together. And organization, and I got to speak to congressmen and about childhood cancer.
Wow, that's awesome.
So this gives us a lot of good ideas, and
it reminds me of like what Brian and I kind of sometimes we'll get asked different types of questions about how do you navigate a particular situation, or how do you handle high school, how do you handle college, how do you look for a job, and sometimes it's tough to give very specific advice because people are always in sort of different situations. They're also at different stages with their eye condition, but there are a couple principles that have been just unbelievably important to Brian and I's life. One of them is maintaining the willingness to push your comfort zone. Everyone's comfort zone is going to be in a different place. Some people may be comfortable doing something while others aren't. But the ability to get up, on a regular basis, put yourself in a situation that challenges you, being willing to either face the success or the failure that comes with that is so critical, because it is in that place that you end up learning all the skills that matter the most: resourcefulness, creativity, assertiveness. You learn your natural abilities. It is simply that exercise of spotting areas where you are not so sure how things will go, but you're willing to challenge yourself and jump in there. And that's critical. The experience you had of going and talking to folks in Congress at 10, 11 years old, it's going to live with you for a very long time. Because let's say at some point you're going and doing a job interview or having a tough conversation with a teacher at school. You now have a data point. You now have a story of sitting down with somebody who has some level of authority, and you being able to communicate with them. And so all of these little things add up a lot over time. That has been a critical helpful tool for Brian and I.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any other burning questions for my brother or I?
How long have you been running your clothing business?
We turned 4 years old, so we've just started walking. We're very proud of that. At the end of May.
So you started in May of 2016 then.
2016. What a fateful day on May 19th. Day that will live in infamy.
I have a question. I know you had talked about like the manufacturing process and how you guys came up with the concept of your company. What about the financial aspect of the company? Was that something that you guys just started funding yourselves, or did you look for resources or people to contribute to starting the company? How did that process go?
You know, it's an awesome question, and you know, I think we've been fascinated by this. So we invested a little bit up front to kind of, you know, make the terrible website that I made, to order a few hundred shirts. But you know, 15 years ago, this would have probably been, you know, hopeless because with social media and the digital age, we had an ability that we weren't aware of when we started, but to scale our project to only those people who would resonate strongly with it. So if we were to start this project 15 years ago, you know, economies of scale and you know, and volume were much more critical in a business plan. So we would have had to buy, you know, millions of dollars of inventory and come up with a big marketing campaign or a Super Bowl ad to move all that inventory and work through distributors and all the big retailers, you know. But when we could make a couple hundred shirts, and then we could kind of learn how to run sort of paid social ads on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, we could make those audiences extraordinarily small so that we weren't wasting time talking to folks that probably weren't interested in what we were doing. So there was a very natural progression. And, you know, some people have an idea of like entrepreneurship where they say it's like burning the ships, right? So you quit your job, you dive all in, you know, it's 80 hours a week, and it's going to make or break. That wasn't the case for Brian and I. I mean, we kind of had this as a side project up until we had the support of people like Ellen DeGeneres, Richard Branson, Ashton Kutcher, NBC Nightly News. And at that point, we said, okay, now we have momentum that we could have never paid for. And so now we can jump in, you know, but there are great questions. I mean, one of the big lessons we're learning is that if we want to sell a lot of inventory in November and December, we got to buy it now and write those checks now. So there is this interesting sort of they call it working capital, but you know, but that's something we've been addressing, and the problems in the business sort of change every couple months. And that's one that now we're kind of figuring out as well.
So now that you guys are going full time now, and the company is big enough to self-sustain, you said like time management and planning ahead. If you're looking for the holiday season, you need to start planning now. What other type of obstacles have you come up with in the business since you guys have gone full time?
Yeah, I think time management is one. I mean, any person you talk to, there's just sometimes not enough hours in a day. Finding what's important and doing that has become really challenging because, you know, I came from a job where they told me, here's my role. They told me what success was. They told me what career was, and I knew exactly what to do. When you're running your own business, is it worth the time to craft to make a nice email campaign, or is it better to go find a new production facility, or is it better to make a cooler box so when somebody gets the product, they like it more. So that aspect has been really hard. From a large business standpoint, we've run into issues with scaling manufacturing, projecting what's going to happen in the future when you're growing really fast. That's can become super hard. Hiring great people to be a part of the business and who are going to have as much passion and care as you are. And really, the overarching problem or the overarching challenge is always what's going to happen in 6 months from today. Are we ready to be ready to take advantage of the opportunity if it arises in 6 months? And are we ready to mitigate the risk if something pops up in 6 months?
Okay, but if we're being honest, the biggest challenge is working with your younger brother.
Okay. All right. Therapy bills are getting pretty expensive. We've been having more fun than we probably deserve.
That is awesome.
Are you hiring? I need a job.
Yeah, well, so right now we're actually trying to find like kind of an executive role, which is kind of a weird process for Brian and I, but we now think that the business is at a scale where we can really attract, somebody who can bring it to the next inflection point, and some of the needs have changed. So we're actually, we're in the process of trying to hire a sort of whatever we want to call it, an operations manager, an executive director type of person. But it's a tough thing because that would require us to give up the reins on a couple things that we control very closely. But it's kind of an important step for us to be able to find somebody who can to delegate out some of the operational responsibilities.
I mean, I need a job.
Well, y'all, this has been really fun for Brad and I, and I love this idea that just because the camp couldn't happen, it doesn't mean you guys aren't still getting together. And the final message that we always try and leave whenever we talk to anybody is really simple, and we've tried to hit on it as many times as we can. Do not let visual impairment be a disability. Let it, you can overcome it as long as you're authentic to yourself. You are as capable, as empowered, as amazing as anyone. And your visual impairment is helping you in a lot of ways more than it's hurting you. It's giving you a lot of skills that other people genuinely just do not get until significantly later in life or ever. So treat it like an obstacle, not like a disability. And we are just, we're so thrilled to have been able to hang out with you guys today.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Does anybody have a last question before we let these amazing brothers leave us?
Well, one amazing brother and then Brad.
I think you got one.
What is it, Madden?
When they become best friends.
Madden wants to know when you guys became best friends. Have you always been close?
No.
There was no hesitation there at all.
Brad tortured me. in just psychological and physical for the first probably 15 years of my life. And then I got bigger than him. And all of a sudden, weirdly, it stopped. Who could have known?
Who would?
We don't know what exactly happened. I think it was a change of heart in Brad. But once I became big enough to fight back, we then became best friends.
Best friends.
Brian and I have always been really close, and in some ways, I think our vision challenge has brought us closer together. We didn't know anybody else with like vision issues growing up, so we kind of used each other. We were competitive in certain ways when we were learning Braille. as kids. When I would play a sport, Brian would inevitably, try to be better than me at it, and then I'd watch Brian get good at something, and it would tell me that I could potentially do it. So we had a healthy competition, and yeah, we've been very close for most of our lives, but it was better when he was like half my size.
Well, we thank you guys so much for joining us. We know you guys are busy, but we do appreciate you taking time out of your schedules to join us. I know I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm pretty sure everybody else did as well. And maybe we can chat again and see where you guys are at in another year, and you could update us on your company and how you guys are getting bigger and better.
We would absolutely love to. And we can't thank you guys enough for sitting down and listening to us, wax poetic for a little while. Have a great rest of the day, great rest of camp, and we look forward to hearing from you all soon.
Yes, definitely. Have a great day.
Thank you so much. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I could definitely say that was an awesome guest speakers. Do you guys agree, or?